Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We've got some pretty exciting news to talk about today. Blizzard has just announced the Hallow's End event for this year. They do one every year around Halloween. This year is called Doom in the Tomb, and they talked about it previously a little bit about 23 wildcards coming back into Standard. They've revealed all of those 23 cards, so I'm going to show you them today, so we'll have a look at them and talk about whether they're good or not, and I think there are a lot of good ones in there. It's going to be excellent. So the event happens on the 8th of October through to the 30th, so it's going to be quite a long event, about 3 weeks, and these cards are only going to be available during that time. You don't have to pay a single thing for the cards. All 23 of these cards that we look at are going to be put automatically into your collection. Even if you've already got the cards in your collection, you will be getting a separate copy of them. These are called event cards, so you can't do anything like disenchant your cards because you're going to be getting them free, because after the events happen, all of the event cards will be disappearing from your collection. For example, if you've already got a N'Zoth and you want to dust it because you're going to be getting one for the event, just know that at the end of October you will be losing that event copy. They also talked about some other cool stuff like dual class arenas coming back. There's going to be 3 tavern brawls which are going to be themed around the solo adventures like the Tombs of Terror that we're playing at the moment, so that'll be really cool as well. But let's have a look at the interesting stuff, because these 23 wildcards will be coming back into Standard. So let's take a look at what they are. And starting with the one I talked about a second ago, and my personal favourite, N'Zoth the Corruptor. This is a card from Whispers of the Old Gods. What an expansion that was. It was a really good expansion. The same expansion that Cthulhu and Yogg and Yasiraj came. They're only bringing back N'Zoth. He's the only old god coming back. But this was one of my favourite ones along with Cthulhu. It was a really good card to build your deck around, and it never felt too OP, but was always a good finisher or a good power play. That your opponent would have to try and play around, and you'd have to try and build towards, just put the right kind of death rattles. And this card, I think, will see play in the meta at the moment. I think it's very good. They're also bringing back Sylvanas. We'll talk about that later, but I think it's important to talk about Sylvanas with this card just because it's such a powerful card. If you've played Sylvanas and it's died once, then you play N'Zoth, and that's all you bring back is one Sylvanas. It's worth playing. But there are loads of other good death rattles, and I think this is going to be very strong in Priest. So Quest Priest already is pretty good. It's not one of the top tier decks, but it plays a lot of Convincing Infiltrators, and then you can resurrect the Convincing Infiltrators. So if your Convincing Infiltrator gets off of a Psychopomp, that is another one that will go into N'Zoth the Corruptor. So when you play this on turn 10, you're going to get a bunch of them back, and it's pretty powerful. And I imagine you'll be playing Sylvanas with that as well. So this card's excellent. Other archetypes that could make use of it. Death Rattle Rogue. I don't know about Death Rattle Rogue. At the moment, it's just not good enough. Very bad. This is a card which 100% makes it better. But the problem with Death Rattle Rogue is that it's too slow to start. It's got the power plays in the late game. So it hasn't got a play as powerful as this would be, but the problem is it just dies too quickly to other more strong decks. This, however, makes it another good card to go into that, and Sylvanas would definitely go into it as well. So yes, I'm excited to see N'Zoth coming back. I think it's a great card, and I love seeing this one. Next is Sylvanas, which I just mentioned. This card, wow, it actually was so powerful that it had to be put into the Hall of Fame. So it's from the Classic set originally. And I'm glad it did get put into the Hall of Fame, because at the time, that was just before they were bringing in Carnivorous Cube. There was Dark Pact. There was Play Dead in Hunter. All these really good Death Rattle synergies, which would make Sylvanas too powerful. Because the Death Rattle of taking control of an enemy minion is incredible. Now, I think this card would go into a lot of decks, even if you're not playing N'Zoth. It's just a very strong turn 6 play. If you're playing against Priest, for example, stealing their minions is amazing. There's so many good options for this. I think even Druid plays a lot of big minions, a lot of buff minions. With the Quest Druid, for example, if you've got a Sylvanas on the board, it's pretty nice to steal some of their minions after they played for Oris, for example. But I talked about Death Rattle Rogue earlier. Death Rattle Rogue could use this. I mean, Necrean Blade is an insane combo with this. If you play your Necrean Blade and then on turn 6 you play Sylvanas, pop the Death Rattle with your Necrean Blade, and then you steal a minion and still have Sylvanas on the board. Very, very strong. You can also do it with the Necrean Vial, which triggers it twice. So if your opponent has any kind of big board, you just play Sylvanas, Preparation, Nectar, and Vial, and you could steal 2 of their minions and still have Sylvanas on the board. So you can see how powerful that is. And again, coming back with N'Zoth is just amazing. So this is another card which I think will fit into a lot of decks and will be a strong meta card for sure. I still don't think Death Rattle Rogue will be very good though, but it does now have some pretty good power plays. But we'll see. I'll be trying it out anyway. Next, we've got the fan favourite, Ragnaros the Firelord. Yes, he's coming back for real this time, not just coming out of Jan'alai and Mage. 8 mana, 8/8 neutral elemental. At the end of the turn, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. This again is a very strong card. I don't know if it's as strong as it now as it was back then, with all the cards we have in standard at the moment. But it's just a very versatile neutral card. It's very much like, in the same vein as a card like Ziliax, in which when you're making a deck, you can almost always fit Ziliax into it. This kind of fits into almost any deck as well, because control decks would like it, because the RNG is not great, but it does create a huge amount of damage on one turn. It's good in aggro decks if you need that final bit of damage to kill your opponent. Sometimes, because Rag doesn't always hit face, as we've seen before. But yeah, a very popular card. The RNG of it can get quite frustrating, so this is one which I'm happy to see back, but glad that it's only back for a few weeks, because yeah, dying to this can get annoying, especially if you've got 3 minions on the board. Your opponent puts this down and Rag just hits face. So yeah, a great card, really good. I can see it slotting into a lot of decks. Nexus Secure. This is an interesting one which is very powerful, but never really saw a lot of play. There were certain decks which did use it and to good effect. But it's a neutral minion that, like I said before, some of these other minions, this one can't really go into any deck. It's a 7 mana 4/6 taunt mech, and the fact that it's a mech now means a lot more than what it did when it used to be in the game, because magnetic is a thing, and we have so many more powerful mechs at the moment. So it's taunt. That's why I draw a beast, dragon, and murloc from your deck. So the effect of it, drawing 3 cards, is really good in any deck if you can make that work. The problem is, do you want to put a beast, a dragon, and a murloc in your deck? Well, I think if you're playing a deck that can play a beast or a dragon, then yes, you probably would play it. But the murloc, I don't really see a murloc that goes into many decks. There are some control shaman decks that play the Underbelly Angler, so maybe you might want it in that. Maybe your beast you're drawing is Octosari. Maybe your beast you're drawing is Shivala in Paladin. This could be a good one in Paladin. Paladins also like to play mechs, so it has synergies there. So yeah, it's a good card. I think it will see play. Just difficult to see what kind of deck right now. But if you have that kind of deck, it will be very good. I think more than likely it's going to be a beast and a dragon you're drawing than a murloc, to be honest. Next, we've got one of my other favourite cards, Emperor Thaurissan. Another one which was very strong, and actually I was quite happy to see go at the time. It's a 6 mana 5/5. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. So basically, this just allows for some really cool combos, and also some broken combos, and that's kind of the downside of it. Now, when the design team is making cards, they always consider how much you can do with 10 mana. And they design certain cards so you can't do them in the same turn. Well, Emperor Thaurissan actually allows you to discount up to 9 other cards in your hand, or maybe even 10 if you play this first, then draw. And then that just opens up huge combo abilities. Now, Cyclone Mage at the moment is really good. All of their spells cost, not all of the spells, but they've got a lot of really powerful 1-cost spells. You can reduce them with Sorcerer's Apprentice, but you can also reduce them with this. And you can reduce your more expensive spells. You can even get this to tick over a couple of turns. You can copy it to if you're playing Warrior, for example, you can copy this with the 3/3 that copies a damaged minion. So you get 2 different ticks on the same turn and reductions to your hand. There's so many good options, and I expect to see some really cool combos. But I also am quite happy to see this one leave on the 30th of October, because I think there will be some pretty broken stuff. So we'll see, but a fun card nonetheless. I really like this one. Now, there is going to be 2 cards per class as well coming into the game. That's all the neutrals we've looked at. 5 really cool neutral legendaries. But now let's look at Druid, and this is just a meme. Astral Communion. 4 mana, gain 10 mana crystals, discard your hand. This never really saw play. There was a couple of decks which could make it work. It was also pretty good if you could play this and then top deck Ultimate Infestation, but it doesn't happen very often. This is not a reliable strategy in most instances. I think a quest druid could potentially play this because, you know, playing on turn 4, gaining 10 mana crystals is pretty good, but you kind of have to top deck your Nourish. And if you don't, honestly, I don't think it sees an improvement to that deck. So yeah, this one's more of a meme. I don't see it seeing much play, to be honest. Coon the Forgotten King, though, I think this could go into Quest Druid as it is now. It's a 10 mana 7/7 and it's choose one, gain 10 armor, or refresh your mana crystals. I think that could have a really interesting place in Druid because it's basically a free 7/7. If you play this on turn 10, then you play straight after it, you have your 10 mana crystals back. You probably wouldn't use it for the armor unless you're playing against Paladin, for example. OTK Paladin, the armor might be really important. But yeah, refreshing your mana crystals to play 2 more Oasis Surges afterwards gives you a really powerful board. You can even play the 7/7, then play your Cenarius afterwards, so you get your buffed Coon and also the Cenarius effects. So it is really powerful. I think it would also work really well with Forbidden Flute. So you could play Coon of Forgotten King, refresh your mana crystals. Then you've got it as your Flute. You play a couple of spells. Maybe Hidden Oasis is one to get 6/6 on the board. Then you play Flute as Coon. You get your 10 mana crystals back again, and then you've got 10 mana to spend for the rest of the turn. So yeah, this one I think is really good. Which spot does it take in Quest Druid? That remains to be seen because Quest Druid is very powerful, and this is quite a greedy card. So does Quest Druid need it? I don't know. Maybe it's a good card just to play along Kingside Forest because Forest sometimes is a little bit underwhelming, so this at least gives you another 7/7 with it. But yeah, really interesting card, and I think yeah, this will go into a Quest Druid deck. Next, moving on to Mage, we've got a couple of good ones here actually because I've been enjoying playing the Quest Mage. Really fun deck, and Babbling Book is a very good card for Quest Mage. Batcry add a random mage spell to your hand. It's just a really strong card, this Babbling Book. It saw a lot of play when it was in Standard. I think it came in One Night in Karazhan. The problem is you can't play it on turn 1 if you're playing the quest. But you could play it on turn 1 and then play the quest later. You don't have to play the quest on turn 1. So it does give you a pretty nice play. And just adding a random spell to your hand is always good for Mage. If you're playing a Mage deck, this is just always going to be a strong pick. Speaking of strong picks, Flamewaker is a very good Mage card. Maybe one of the best Mage cards ever. Flamewaker, well, it's probably not the best ever, but it's very, very strong. Whenever you see these kind of broken brawls, Flamewaker's usually a part of it. It's a 3 mana 2/4, but it has after you cast a spell, deal 2 damage, randomly split among all enemies. And at the time when this was in the game, it was really powerful. But I would argue that it's even more powerful coming into the game now because Ray of Frost exists, Magic Trick exists, Elemental Evocation. Mage is kind of at the moment in a spot where it has lots of powerful small spell plays with Mana Cyclone, for example. And you can play Sorcerer's Apprentice still. So on turn 5, you play a Flamewaker, then a Sorcerer's Apprentice. You can play 2 Ray of Frosts. If you've got another copy of it in your hand, you can play 4 Ray of Frosts. Suddenly, that's freezing your opponent's minions and doing 8 damage to their board. You can have more than one Flamewaker on the board as well, so they deal double damage. You can play it with Arcane Missiles to do even more damage. Cinderstorm, loads of really strong plays with this. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant card. Very, very good, and I'm going to try it in Quest Mage too. Now this one's interesting. Mysterious Challenger. So this came out in the Grand Tournament. This was actually the first expansion where I first started playing Hearthstone. I think I started playing just before the expansion came out, actually. And so I never played this deck because I didn't have a collection. I was free to play at the time. But this was the #1 deck. And if anyone in history talks about broken decks of Hearthstone, they often talk about the Undertaker deck, but also Mysterious Challenger in Paladin is so good because they've had more cards like that kind of have this mechanic come into the game over recent expansions, but just being able to put one of each of your secrets, take them out of your deck so you never have to draw them again, you don't top deck those 1 mana secrets, put them on the board, was just so good. And you know, Paladin Secrets aren't great, but just not having those 1-drops allows you to draw the other cards in that deck. So the question is whether this is going to be good now. Because in Wild, you don't see people talking about Mysterious Challenger anymore. It's not like a huge deck in Wild. So is it really that powerful anymore, or was it just at that time there was nothing good to combat it? I would argue there's more decks in the game now, more viable decks and more good decks. So I don't know. I don't really. I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to be a new secret archetype because Bellringer Sentry is still in the game that you can play. You can also play Rissa, Commander Rissa, the legendary where you have secrets to play twice when you play them. So it does have some pretty good support. So I think a Secret Paladin deck could potentially work. But will it still have that problem of Secret Paladin being really awesome early game with the weapon and all the secret synergies I talked about, but then all of a sudden getting to the late game, your opponent's played a couple of board clears and you've got nothing? We'll see. But really interesting to see this one come back. Then to support that, we've got Avenge, which is one of the better secrets ever for Paladin, to be honest. When one of your minions dies, give a random friendly minion 3/2. That's pretty good. For 1 mana, 3/2 to a random minion, friendly minion. And it's just another secret that comes into the game that your opponent has to play around. So, yeah, not much to say about this other than it is a very strong secret for Paladin anyway. 1 mana. And would definitely go into that deck. But I don't think many Paladin decks would want to play this outside of that. You're not suddenly going to put it in your Murloc Paladin. In my opinion, I think you would just only put it in this this Secret Paladin. But still, a cool card coming back into the game. I'm excited to try Secret Paladin because, like I said, I never had the opportunity to at the time. But I did lose to it a lot. I think at that point, I was playing like a Face Hunter deck because it's all I could afford at the time. So yeah, cool card coming back. We'll see. Lock and Load, I've never liked this card. It always comes up in Tavern Brawls or in the single player solo adventures. Each time you cast a spell this turn, add a random hunter card to your hand. 2 mana. So you're paying 2 mana to get a number of cards generated from the other spells you cast that turn. Now, Hunter does have more secret kind of synergies. Spell synergies. The secrets are pretty good at the moment. They're being played quite a lot. You can also play Zul'jin afterwards, so playing spells you've got a bit of an incentive. But I never really see Lock and Load as anything that's worth playing. It's just a value play that you often don't get much value from. Do you really want a couple more random spells, or do you just want to play a 2 mana secret, which you know what it is and it's pretty good anyway? So yeah, I don't really see this one having much impact. Call of the Wild, I'm a little bit worried about, but I don't think, again, this could... I might regret saying that, but I'm not sure it will. I think it might be a little bit too greedy, because this is very good with Zul'jin. Now, these two, Zul'jin and this card, weren't around at the same time, so it'll be interesting to see whether it's worth playing with Zul'jin. But for 9 mana, I don't know whether Hunter really wants to do that. I think Highlander Hunter might, because... you know, they can only run 1 copy of each card. Maybe they would run 1 copy of this. We'll see. But summoning all 3 animal companions and having their effects combined is a very strong play. So we'll see. And like when you're playing Zul'jin anyway, you're often getting a full board. Do you really need 3 more animal companions if potentially you're getting 4 Unleash the Beasts on there anyway? It would still be a strong play, don't get me wrong, but... we'll see. I'll probably regret saying that, but I'm not sure it's gonna get into the decks. Moving on to Shaman Evolve. Now this is a fun card. Transform all your minions into random ones that cost 1 more. So this is basically your whole board will transform or evolve by 1. So a pretty good card. Now I don't think an evolve deck is suddenly going to happen, but Battlecry Shaman is using Mutate. Now, I don't think you would switch Mutate for this, because Mutate is so powerful when you play the Mogu Flesh Shaper and then you mutate it for 0 mana. So you play Flesh Shaper for 0 and the Mutate for 0 and you get a random 8-drop. Now, the Evolve does fit into a Lackey deck just because the Lackeys are all 1 mana 1/1s, so you often get these pretty big boards that you wouldn't mind evolving. So yes, it could have some value. I don't really know if this will take that spot. in that deck. That deck is very strong, one of the best in the game. Does it really need a 1 mana evolve? If it does, is it going to be dropping Mutate? Probably. And if it drops Mutate, is it better? Is it better to have an evolve? I don't know. It's a very strong card, which might not see play. Maybe Murloc Shaman would play it because, you know, you play a bunch of Murlocs, evolve them, and get a bit more power on the board. We'll see. Next Shaman card is another. This was a really powerful card at the time, the Thing from Below. 6 mana, 5/5, Taunt, costs 1 less for each totem you summoned this game. So this was, when this was in the game, there weren't many kind of mana cheating effects, but this is a pretty big one. Being able to play 0 mana 5/5s at certain points in the game, you can have 2 of these in your deck, was really strong power plays. Problem with it right now is, as I said, Battlecry Shaman's so good, and I don't see this card taking a spot in Battlecry Shaman. They don't want to use their totem hero power. As a Battlecry Shaman, you literally want to play Battlecries until you change your hero power, so this wouldn't go in there. Control Shaman potentially would, because they have a lot of off turns where they're doing totems, so it could be a big nice swing turn, and it's got Taunt as well. Potentially in Control Shaman, but again, that deck's not amazing, and I don't think putting something like this would push that deck right over the top. So Shaman's got 2 pretty good cards, but I don't see them really shifting where Shaman is at the moment in the meta game. Moving on to Rogue now, and this one's really cool. This is one of the early legendaries that I got as well. Shaku the Collector. It's a 3 mana 2/3 with stealth. Whenever this attacks, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. So this goes into a Thief Rogue deck basically. And it's pretty good because it's got stealth, so it almost guarantees that you'll be able to attack and get a card. Sometimes it survives and you get to attack twice and get another card. And of course that synergizes with the Rogue quest. So I think this one's pretty nice to go into that deck, because sometimes Quest Rogue does struggle. It's got some pretty decent tools that were introduced in this expansion, but I think it could do with some more. Shaku was always one though that you don't have to play this one, and the reason is, I'll explain in this next card, Swashbuckler, because I think Swashbuckler is one of the best 1-drops for Rogue ever. I think it's very, very strong. 1 mana 1/1, Battlecry, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. Now, some people are playing Pharaoh Cat, which obviously has better stats than this, but that doesn't always activate the quest. This doesn't always either if you're playing Rogue, but if you're playing any other class, it will do. The problem is you don't play it on turn 1 anymore because you're playing your quest. So do you really want this card in that deck? I think probably yes, because you can squeeze it in around. It's 1 mana is very versatile to squeeze in on other turns just to make your mana fit. So I think it's a good card for that. But Swashbuckler was also so good that it was played in Tempo Rogue decks. Back when it was played before, there was more pirate synergies, Patches the Pirate being one of them. In particular, being able to play this and get a Patches, amazing on turn 1. So will it fit into a Tempo Rogue deck? Possibly. It's nice. It's a really nice turn 1 play. Is it better than the Pharaoh Cat? Probably not in a Tempo Rogue, but maybe they'll run this as well, because it is a very good card, and I think this is one that will go into a lot of different Rogue decks. Now, Priest, Lightbomb. This card's very good. I just don't know whether Priest specifically needs this card. So what it is, 6 mana, deal damage to each minion equal to its attack. So it's basically a good board clear, and usually the only minions that it doesn't clear are the ones that don't have high attack, so you're not so worried about. Not in all cases, sometimes you are worried about the lower attack minions. High Priest Amit, for example, is a 2/7 that wouldn't die to this. But I think it's a good card. Is it better than Mass Hysteria though? Because Mass Hysteria comes out on turn 5, it comes out a turn earlier. I don't think you would want to run 2 Mass Hysterias and 2 Light Bombs and 2 Plague of Deaths. So where does this really fit? We'll have to see. Maybe people will just work out that it's better than a Mass Hysteria and they'll just play this on turn 6, because Priest does have a lot of pretty good 5-drops that you can play. The Water Bearer, for example, also the Convincing Infiltrator, those sort of cards. So maybe having some AoE on turn 6 is better. Then we've got Vol'jin. Never really played a lot. It's a 5 mana 6/2 legendary. Battlecry, swap health with another minion. So the idea here is you just swap health with an enemy minion, give the enemy minion 2 health, and then make an easy trade. it doesn't really have many uses. It's nice. Maybe if you're playing against combo priests, it's a good way to get rid of their minions that they've been building up to knock you down. It's a good way to get rid of big taunt minions, but I don't really see a good spot for this right now, to be honest. West Priest might like it, but I really don't think so. Not too exciting, to be honest. Now moving on to Warlock, Imp Gang Boss is another minion that was a staple for a long time for Zoo Warlock. Very good card this. 3 mana, 2/4 demon. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 1/1 imp. It's just very good for Zoo Warlock. There's not much more to say about it, to be honest. It's a good statted minion to play on turn 3, and on top of that, it brings out some other 1/1 imps for you to buff with your Grim Rally, to kill with your Lackey Generators, for example. So yeah, a really good card. Then moving on to complete meme card number 2, Renounce Darkness. Replace your hero power and warlock cards with another classes. The cards cost 1 less. So this card was always a bit of a meme. Yes, it's got quite a nice effect. So you can swap your hero power with somebody else. That's not very good because the warlock hero power is pretty much usually seen as one of the best. But swapping cards, having cards costing 1 less is very powerful. Thing is though, they're random, they're from a different class, they may not synergize with each other. The deck that you usually build will synergize with each other. Having cards costing 1 less that don't synergize is pretty much useless. So yeah, I don't really see this being played. But it is a good way to get rid of Bloods from Hakar, for example. That's the best I can really come up with for this. So yeah, I really don't see this one seeing play. It's a fun card to play with just to see what you get though. Moving on to Warrior, we're getting Varian Wren. This is a 10 mana 7/7 battle cry. Draw 3 cards, put any minions you drew directly into the battlefield. So this card would go very well into a big Warrior deck. But the Warrior as it is right now, you don't really want to play this card, I don't think. Because you don't want to pull a Tomb Warden off this because you don't get the battle cry. You don't want to draw an Omega Devastator because you don't get the battle cry. You don't want to draw a Ziliax because you want to be playing the Ziliax at exactly the right time to magnetize it to something else. You don't want to be getting your Dynamatics, for example, because you need those battle cries. So it's kind of like a King Thaurissan type play, but I don't think it's as good as King Thaurissan either. Well, it's better in some ways, but King Thaurissan can sometimes be a little bit underwhelming. When you see it played with Druid, they'll often play it with just a 6 and a 5 mana spell, or maybe 3 5-mana spells. Nothing too big. But this, potentially, if you built a big warrior deck, then you could pull out 3 pretty impressive cards. Really big cards that will actually have some impact on the board. And if you don't, you're drawing spells, for example, it's a 10 mana 7/7 that draws you 3 cards. 10 mana 7/7 that draws 3 cards is pretty good, right? But it is pretty slow. The turn you play it, you're losing a lot of tempo, but you're getting 3 cards in your hand and maybe some more minions on the board. So I don't really see this one being played because the strengths of Warrior right now, this isn't a very good card to put in there. But maybe we can see a different type of Warrior because they do have some good rush cards. So getting any rush minion out of your deck with this is pretty nice if you need to use it. But the problem is with rush is it's often a nice removal tool. So Restless Mummy, you don't often want to be putting that on the board unless you're clearing something in Control Warrior anyway. So an interesting card with a powerful effect, but is there really a deck where it fits? I don't think so. Then we got Bloodhoof Brave. This card actually is very good. It has always been very good, and I think this will fit in a lot of decks. When it's damaged, it has +3 attack. It's well statted at 4 mana 2/6. It synergizes with the 3 mana 3/3, which copies a damaged minion. I think it could go into the Tempo Warrior because it can protect your Frothing Berserkers, for example. It's got a lot of good synergies in Warrior, basically. It's just a really, really nice card to play on 4. Difficult for your opponent to deal with because if you're trading minions in, suddenly it's got much higher attack and it can kill off more minions. So yeah, Bloodhoof Brave is a very good card and one I think Warriors will use. It synergizes with Armadillo, or Armagadillo I should say. It's the only downside to it right now is that it's not a mech. So Control Warrior maybe doesn't need this. I don't think you would see this in Control Warrior, but it goes into the Frightened Flunky pool. Frightened Flunky was recently nerfed, so it won't come up as often as it used to because it is just a warrior card. But I think if it comes up on Frightened Flunky, you'll be picking this one if it's the best of the three, because it's pretty good. Alright, that's all the cards, guys. Sorry, I went on a bit there because I'm quite excited about these cards. I'm really looking forward to playing with them, actually, because Blizzard's doing a really good job, in my opinion. There are problems in the game. Always going to be problems in the game. In the game that we love, we're always going to be wanting it to be better and better. But since the Rise of Shadows, I think they've done a really good job at like having a good cadence of content for us to play with. And when I first heard this, they're adding 23 cards into the game, I was like, this is amazing, because it just shakes everything up. Now, I was always thinking in the back of the mind, though, you know, every time they introduce new cards into the game, they make it more expensive. But they're giving everyone these cards for free. So if you haven't got any of these cards, you're getting a bunch of legendaries for free. New cards that you can put in. Now, I mean, it would be awful if they didn't give them for free, and then suddenly the meta changes and you're having to craft these cards just for a 30 or 3 week period. It would just be ridiculous. Now, it does technically make the game more expensive because new decks might emerge and you might get these cards, but you might have to craft other cards around these sort of cards to make those decks fit. But for me, as a person who has a pretty decent collection, I do pre-order. I spend too much money, to be honest, on this game, but I think it's the best thing for Hearthstone. Free-to-play players, this game's always going to be expensive, and it's unfortunate, but you're getting these cards for free. So I think they've done a really good job there, and I really like what they're doing with these events. There's going to be some good rewards with the events. There'll be pack bundles with pretty good deals on, well, compared to the normal price, they're pretty good deals. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Every expansion, like in previous expansions before the Rise of Shadows, I think Rastakhan's Rumble was probably the worst, being honest. They would release the expansion, everyone's really excited. At the same time, you get the single player, so you're kind of playing with the new decks, new cards, you're playing with the new single player content, and the new cards that they introduced in Rastakhan's Rumble really didn't change much. They weren't that powerful. And then after about a month, that's it. They weren't doing nerfs, they weren't doing buffs very often. They did do some, and that's it until the next expansion comes out. But now we're getting changes to the stats of cards. We're getting buffs, we're getting events, we're getting new cards coming in. Snip Snap came in as a free legendary in the previous expansion as well, and the solo adventures come out a month or 5 weeks later after the expansion's announced, so or comes out. So that way you just get more stepped content, which just makes it more fun for someone like me, anyway, in my opinion, come back into the game. So yeah, I'm really pleased with what they're doing, and I'm looking forward to playing this Doom in the Tomb. You know, the single player brawls will be fun as well. They did one of those in the Rise of Shadows, and that was really good fun too. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about these cards, guys. I hope you are looking forward to it as much as I am. I will be obviously making videos on it. It's happening on the 8th, remember, so not very long to wait for it. And yeah, we'll see what cool decks we can come up with. But thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you next time.